Begin now. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Professor Pega Matalib, and I am a professor of English at San Diego Mesa College, as well as a PATH coordinator. This event is organized in collaboration between San Diego Community College District's PATH program and work-based learning. And before we get started, I would like to introduce my colleague, Caitlin Choi, to introduce us and say a few words about work-based learning and then doing some land acknowledgements.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So this event is a collaboration, as Professor Pega mentioned, between PATH and work-based learning. So we are excited to share with you a panel of great professionals on how they leverage the humanities degree in their careers, and a fantastic student moderator who will be facilitating the panel. And so that's what we do at work-based learning, is to help students to explore careers and to become more career prepared when they move on. And so I also want to let you know that you can drop your questions in the Q&A box in your Zoom control panel during the course of the panel, and we will share them with the speakers during the Q&A. Also, this event is being recorded to share with those who are unable to participate synchronously. At the end of the event, please fill out our survey at tinyurl.com/Mesa Humanities. This helps us to learn what worked and what didn't, so we can improve future events. Mesa students will be entered into an opportunity drawing for a $25 Amazon gift card. Woohoo! So at this time, we would like to take a moment to reflect on the lands on which we reside. We recognize that San Diego Mesa College sits on the ancestral homeland of the Myia Nation, and we extend our respect and gratitude to Myia peoples who have lived here since time immemorial. As all of our liberation is tied together, and so is our history, we also acknowledge that this country was built up from the free enslaved labor of Black people, and we honor the legacy of the African diaspora. We pay respects to Black life, knowledge, and skills stolen due to violence and white supremacy. With this acknowledgement, we also recognize a duty to give honor through our work and continue to stand up for racial and social justice every day. Please join me in a collective breath. Now I would like to pass the mic to Professor Pega to provide context for the panel and to introduce our amazing moderator.
Thank you, Caitlin. The 2019 Humanities and American Life, a survey of the public's attitude and engagement, reported that over 84% of all workers with a terminal bachelor's degree in the humanities reported that they were satisfied with their jobs in 2015, and 90% of the humanities majors with an advanced degree expressed satisfaction. In the world that we're living in today, we realize that joy and happiness are critical to our survival and ability to thrive as human beings. Why spend a single second being unhappy in a career when clearly the humanities are a great options to pursue? Our Mesa counselors are standing by, as well as our excellent humanities faculty, to help you explore the humanities as a major and a future career option. And you can begin the process by sending out an email to me, and I will drop my email in the chat in just a moment. With that said, please allow me to introduce our excellent student moderator who will facilitate the conversation we'll have with our panelists, who will tell about their lived experiences and their truths having pursued a degree in the humanities. Demree McGhee is our student moderator. She is a UCSD PATH intern, writer, and tutor. Demree is a tutor and writer who's currently working as a PATH program intern at UCSD. In her tutoring and outreach work, Demree strives to provide space and opportunities for marginalized voices in the realm of the arts and humanities. In her own creative fiction and poetry, she focuses on the messy intersections of femininity, race, and sexuality. Her work has been published in multiple literary magazines such as Wax 9, Lunch Ticket, Burn All Books, and more. She is a recent Miramar College transfer student and a PATH program peer mentee, and she's currently majoring in literature and writing at UCSD. Welcome, Demree.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much for that introduction. I think in order to start us off, I would just like to go down the line of our panelists and have them all introduce themselves, take a couple of minutes to introduce themselves, and then I will get started with the questions. So we can go ahead and start with Porochista.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is really, really lovely. I am a writer, and that means several different things. I have written 2 works of nonfiction, a memoir, and a collection of essays, as well as 2 novels. I'm an essayist, but I'm also a journalist, and that came a little before my books. And I'm also a professor of writing. I do a lot of public speaking. What else can I tell you? I'm an activist in several different areas. And that, I think, I come from an Iranian American background. That's very important to the work I do and to my entire essence. So that's huge. I also work in the area of disability and chronic illness. So that's another big area of mine. And I think that's about it with me.
Wonderful. And then we can just sort of continue from there. So perhaps Myia, since she's who I can see next on my screen.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Myia Williams. I am an educator. I have been able to serve as an educator in primary school settings, secondary school settings, and currently in tertiary school environments, AKA college environments. I work as a regional coordinator for the Umoja Community Education Foundation. Some of you here may be students at a campus that has an Umoja program. Yes, as an educator, I've been fortunate to navigate through many different disciplines. I have supported in adult transitioning courses where students who have different neural pathways or neural behaviors are learning. I have supported in English courses, which are almost my favorite. I love cultural disciplines and more. And so I would like to just put all of my experience in one package and label myself as an educator. I hope to talk more about myself as we go on with the panel. Thank you.
And then finally we have Richard.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Richard Hickman. I am the Total Force Director at NAVFAC Southwest. What NAVFAC stands for is Naval Facilities and Engineering Command. We work for basically the Department of Navy. And what we do is we build buildings on naval installations and we maintain them. So if you're driving down in San Diego area up Highway 5, you're passing Camp Pendleton, you look to the right, you see a hospital on the side of the road there. And inside the base, we built that hospital. So those type of things that we do to ensure that all Navy personnel have the facilities they need to do the training, to do operations throughout each day. So for my job though, I'm basically the principal advisor to our business director. She's our senior civilian of the command. I am a civilian, I'm not in the military, never been in the military, but we support the military, what we do. So basically as a principal advisor to her, I advise her on all people initiatives. So we have everything that falls under my department, which includes human resources, equal employment opportunity, labor and employee relations, staffing, military programs, training. We have a number of different areas that are all people related that fall in my arena. So, I've been doing this job for a number of years. I have a pretty diverse background. I haven't always been doing this job. I've held other positions. I'm excited to share those with you when the opportunities come up. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for introducing yourselves. I'm just now realizing maybe we can start with, oh no, we can continue in the order. I was going to go with the order on the screen, but we can start with Porochista again for our first question. How did you decide on your majors and degrees?
Okay, well, I am the sort of weird case where I knew I wanted to be a writer since I was like 4 years old. I was put into like ESL class when we came to America, and I think being so bullied and in an atmosphere of so much anti-Iranian American sentiment made me really want to get become good at English. So it was kind of out of spite, my interest in English at first. And so I just started trying to read all the books I could. I went to a public school, and I had a feeling our education wasn't as good as the people like who lived like a few miles over. So I had this like feeling that I had to be sort of self-taught. So I was just reading a lot. And basically I really just knew I wanted to be a writer, because I just saw books as like a way to be an American, basically, and to like find a path like in this country. I had no other interest, basically. And so then I applied to colleges, and at that point it was pretty clear that we weren't really going to be able to afford even going to state school. I grew up in the Los Angeles area, and so I started to realize that you can get scholarships to go to these like kind of fancy liberal arts schools, like, and so that was really magical to me. And there was a school in New York called Sarah Lawrence College, and they'd sent these pamphlets in the mail that said things like, you are different, so are we. And I did a little bit of research, and I realized, oh, they have a big like queer population, which was really important to me at that point, being like a very like, I don't know, I don't even think like closeted was the term. Like it was just like a weird period in like, I think like 90s LA suburbia, where you were like about to like become yourself, but there was still we had a long way to go with diversity and all that. So anyways, I did get a scholarship, amazingly, to go there. And then I started doing a series of internships in the city, again, as a way to sort of fit in the East Coast in New York. Because I didn't fit in at Sarah Lawrence College. I'd never been around like rich people. I'd never been in a mostly white environment. So that was all very alarming. And so I started taking writing workshops, but I also did a lot of internships at places like the Village Voice, Spin Magazine, a bunch of magazines that no longer exist under the umbrella of Raygun Publishing. And these internships were really huge for me. And they were really what got me interested in journalism as a sort of practical track as a writer. And so I was writing my first big articles, which were really in the arts and entertainment area, at the age of 19, which was really, rare then, I think still pretty rare now. But it came out of a lot of anxiety, having to prove myself all the time, wanting to really earn my keep in America, and and just pushing myself really hard in atmospheres where I wasn't really fitting in. And then, I continued in journalism after I graduated. I had my own column at Paper Magazine right when I graduated. It was like a bar review and nightlife column, which was a dream gig for like a 22-year-old, of course. But I still felt like it wasn't really what I was meant to do. I ended up, after 9/11, going to graduate school because New York felt like in such crisis at that point. And of course, as a Muslim American, I was also very terrified. And so I ended up going to grad school for creative writing, got my MA at Johns Hopkins at the writing seminars there, which was a nightmare. I can get into that later if you want. And I ended up writing my first novel in my fellowship year from Johns Hopkins. And so that was how that happened. So, long story long, basically my interests, which were of course in the arts, motivated me. But also I think a theme that you might hear is like, I kept feeling pushed out of environments that I was in. And I never felt like I was fitting in no matter where. So I was always trying to find a way. And for me, the humanities were really logical in that sense. So, and I sort of stuck to it. I've always been kind of a one-trick pony. So yeah, that was my track with the academic stuff.
Thank you so much. And then we can go ahead and move on to Myia.
Porochista, that was really beautiful how you stated the track to humanities was almost a logical one, right? And you make me think of a whole new world when you say that you saw reading and books as being this American thing. I've never heard that before, and I just want to share that is really resonating with me, and I'm going to continue to chew on that. I think that I love that humanities create space for us to say things like that to each other, and dissect what was said and what wasn't said, and really read between the lines in basic human communications, in texts that we choose to read, whether it's a literary work or, you know, just some subtitles that are on a movie that we're watching. We just really have the space to engage the human. And that is what drove me to this college, you know, the College of Arts and Humanities. I started my undergraduate career as an English major. I knew that I loved English, American Lit, etc., just from the beginning. And at some point in my college career, there, like most college students do, you come to a shift. You come to a point where you are further developing yourself, further developing that identity. And I was introduced to Africana studies, and I was basically introduced to this whole new world. We know it today as staying woke, being woke. We know it today as being an activist or empowered. Those are some terms that we throw around today. That was the experience that I was having when I was introduced to Africana studies. And then I learned that it's interdisciplinary, meaning that it engages multiple disciplines, including STEM, you know, and so it's interdisciplinary in such a way. And then it also fulfilled general education requirements. You know, as students, we do have this pathway and we are trying to reach our goal. And so the more enjoyable your general requirements are, the likely, you know, you're more likely to persist and stay involved in your studies. And so I was doing this thing called double majoring, right? And I highly recommend it if you have the fortitude, if you have the stamina, if you have the community support. I highly recommend that. At the time, I was involved in two majors, both in the College of Arts and Humanities, but both offering me something very different, two completely different worldviews. And something unique happened to me. I went from being so powerful and strong in my English courses and earning these A's, not effortlessly, but enjoyably, I'll say, right? Until one semester, I thought it would be so wonderful to take my English course on colonialism and pair it with my Africana Studies course on colonialism, because the two could talk to each other, right? That's something we encourage in our discipline. And the conversation they had was really ugly. It was really ugly. And I felt like one side told a more credible truth, and I felt like the other side really tried to silence me. And this was proven as I tried to write, as I tried to produce and perform in my English courses, in my English course, the colonialism course. I did not do well, and it was not a reflection on my performance, it was a reflection on my perspective. And so I kept my English as a minor because I had already given enough work to it. But I stayed and I made my main #1 primary major, Africana Studies, which really supported me, rooted me, grounded me, and has been the gift to keep on giving in my ongoing analysis and interaction with the world. It has proven to be incredibly helpful during this pandemic, during this duo or trifecta pandemic, depending on where you're sitting and where you're situated. My studies have allowed me to even be considerate of where you may be situated. That's a little bit about why I chose and stayed in the College of Arts and Humanities.
Thank you so much. We can go ahead and move on to Richard.
So my route's a little bit more unconventional than probably the norm, and that's okay. Everybody's going to have their own pathway to get to where they want to go. So when I graduated from high school, I went to a community college up in Northern California. Just was doing my general education, and found success in the English courses. I was probably where I was just the strongest. It got to a point to where they recommended me to be a tutor in the writing center. I never really took it on. I thought that, okay, I'm pretty good at writing, and so maybe that's something I can do in the future. But I decided at that time to go to the police academy, believe it or not. So I went to the police academy. I actually graduated from the police academy, but never became a police officer. I ended up having my daughter and relocated from Northern California to Southern California, and went back to school and decided to do something else with my career. And I went to Mesa College, and again found really good strengths with my writing. And eventually I transferred to University of San Diego, and still didn't declare a major for a while because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But reading and writing came natural to me, and I found that through just my coursework and the grades that I was getting in those type of courses. And I just really enjoyed reading, and I really enjoyed writing critically and reading critically. And at the end of the day, I graduated from USD with a degree in English. And when I graduated, I knew I did not want to be a writer professionally for a job, for a career. I wanted to get into human resources, believe it or not. But at that time, it was really hard to get a job coming straight from college into human resources without having some sort of experience. So I decided to go back to school, and I got my degree in single subject teaching. So I was an actual English teacher for 7th and 8th grade for several years. Moved out of state and taught 7th and 8th grade English. And then I decided to move back to San Diego because I missed the weather, missed kind of the culture over here. And I saw an internship through USD in human resources with the Department of Navy. And I thought this is an opportunity now for me to kind of get into what I really wanted to do outside of college. So I took that opportunity and got into the Navy doing that. But ironically, it's funny because when I transferred from the junior college and I went to USD, where they said I should be a tutor in the writing center, when I went to USD, they said I need tutoring in writing, believe it or not. So I actually had to work really hard to kind of get to that level. And at the end of it, they wanted me to be a tutor at the University of San Diego as well too, in the writing center. So, my path's a little bit different. I've done multiple things in my career, but I'm really at a spot where I want to be. I'm still helping people. I'm still reading and writing critically every single day. I'm presenting every single day. So those are the skills that you're going to learn in college at a real life that you're going to have to do daily.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we have our last person on the panel with us, just joining us now. Rizzhel, Javier, if you could take the time to introduce yourself, and then I might have a question for you.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Apologies for the delay. I'm with my grandmother right now. So yeah, my name is Rizzhel Javier, and everyone calls me Riz. I am an artist and educator born and raised San Diego, and I've been in the field for about 12 years, and I just transitioned from college to the nonprofit world. And I primarily work with youth, and I teach media arts, media literacy. And yeah, right now I work at the Umoja project. And just last year I was on staff at City College as part of their photo department.
Awesome. And then we just got finished up with a question. If I could ask you this, how did you decide on your major or your degree?
That is a really good question. So I started off in school actually as a double major. And I think for a lot of migrant students, it's a really hard decision to do what you want to do if it's different than what your parents want you to do. So the way that I was able to compromise was to find a major at the time, which was child development, that I felt that my parents were able to understand what that meant. and what that might equal. And then I also double majored in art. And so I think that was the compromise. But when I was in my last year of undergrad, I literally got a letter from the financial aid department that said, you have one more semester and you're kicked out. And that's when I decided, okay, I have to pick one major. Which one do I want to do? And I said, can I do child development when I do art? And can I do art while I'm doing child development? So I was trying to figure out what would work. And then ultimately I just decided, because it was like logistics. I needed to stay at the school for like a year if I wanted my child development degree. I was closer to finishing my art degree, and that's how I finished my first degree. And then I had to go home back to San Diego, which is where, even though I wanted to go to other places, like I ended up going to school in San Diego, which I'm glad about.
Cool, thank you so much. For my next question, do you ever feel like you were pressured to pursue a degree that was perceived to pay more? And then we can continue with the same order.
Yeah. I think most people that pursue college have the assumption that we're gonna get a job. That's what a lot of people go to school for, right? But I think that definitely leaving, like after I had finished grad school, something that really resonated with me that I'll always remember is my dad said to me, how is it that you have 2 degrees and I have none? And like I'm still more successful than you. And I came from a different country. I came from, all these things where he's just like, I thought that by giving you all the things that you needed, you'd be able to get like further than me. And actually you're not. And so it was really interesting from my dad's perspective, like, actually, I'm not really doing that well compared to maybe some of my counterparts here, like my students who, they talk to me and they're like, oh, you have a degree, you've been working for 12 years, you have an established community in San Diego. And I think there is some success in that. But when it's like, I see like where the concern of my dad is coming through that, right? But yeah, I definitely think my whole career was guided on like what kind of resources I would have, right, from that job. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. And then we can continue with Porochista.
Yeah, this is a great question. I think there's some parallels with mine too. I mean, I grew up on the east side of LA with immigrant parents, and we had a very tiny apartment. My brother and I shared a room, till I graduated, and money was always a problem. And then, but at the same time, my parents really valued education. So like, yes, they thought like me wanting to be a writer, journalist, that meant like I could be very successful. Of course, at that time, I was also like getting scholarships on my own. So I wasn't really relying on them for money. And when I got to the East Coast for school, I didn't even realize kids got money from their parents. So like for me to go to those internships I was talking about in New York City, I would just jump trains all the time. And like, it was so crazy. Like, of course, I was so distanced from the conversation about privilege and why like I could steal and jump trains and things like that and get away with it, right? I realized if I really dressed up on the commuter train, no one would say anything to me and no one would suspect me. So I literally had to like steal to get to my internship. And then when I was there, I would just survive off of like vending machine Pop-Tarts. And so I was like in a lot of trouble for most of my undergrad. And that went to my graduate years too, where I was really struggling to survive in Baltimore as well. I have to say, like right now I live in Queens in New York, and I'm 43, and I don't think there's ever been a month that I haven't been stressed out about money. I don't think that, a lot of people are like, wow, you have 4 books, you've written for the New York Times, blah, blah, like I have the superficial markers of like, what seems to be like success. And I think like, personally, I identify as someone who's had success because I've achieved my dreams. All the things that I have right now are things I really work towards. But I have to say, I've always been very much lacking in the, finance area. My mother's an accountant, and she's always horrified at how I live. And I always say it's just me and my dog, whatever. But it does continue to be an issue. And I do sometimes wonder, I do see like friends of mine, my best friend, you know, growing up, she's worked for Google since Google pretty much started. She didn't go to grad school, and she was like, you know, not an A student like I was. And to this day, she's like always sending me her hand-me-downs and sending me like gift certificates and fancy stuff. You know, when she comes to town, she takes me out to like a fancy restaurant. You know, she's always going to earn more than me. So it's like, yeah, for me, it has been a bit of a, you know, exchange there. At the same time, there's also other paths I could have taken in the world, in the literary world and publishing world, to have made more money too. For instance, I could have written genres that were more lucrative, but those genres just didn't speak to me. So I couldn't fake it, even though I tried a few times to fake my way in. So I think, like, at the end of the day, I always say that I sleep well at night. I have a clear conscience. I feel like I have lived a happy life. But I do tell some of my students, like, if it's really important for you to go on skiing trips or wear designer clothes or, like, you know, eat like $100 dinners every other night, then this is maybe, my life is not for you. Because I'm eating canned food still, you know, and I'm still like penny pinching, and my friends are all kind of scrappy, and we might seem not so, like, you know, together to a lot of you guys. So it's just a different path.
Wow. So to answer the question, because I'm just engrossed in you all's stories, I cannot say that I received a lot of pressure about my major or my decision. And I think it has to do with the energy that I spoke with when I spoke about what it is that I'm doing. It was a type of energy that suggested you not pressure me. It was the type of energy that suggested I see the whole value in majoring in Africana studies. I see the honor that it brings to my culture and my lineage. I see the opportunities that it brings for restoring my people. And I see how it is relevant in every aspect of society. And so when you say pack punchers like that, people feel less inclined to try to discourage you or pressure you. Now, what they have done, and this is an insidious type of pressure, you know, because they plant that seed in you as a young person that you might not be successful, you know, and it's harmful and dangerous to do that at a time when we're all creating our own notions of success. You know, I could talk to anyone on this panel right now, and we would all in some way say that we feel successful and we feel fulfilled and we are loving the decisions that we've made and how things have come into fruition. But that's because we're clear on our values and our goals and what's important to us. You know, I was more of a traditional college student, first generation, but traditional in the sense that I went to Cal State Dominguez Hills right out of high school, and I stayed there until I was finished. And so those were some very formative years for me, dog years, if you will. And so, you know, for it to be that type of time where all of this self-discovery is coming on, and someone to plant a seed that what you're committing to may not be the best for you, it is it's harmful and it can create a stress. And so I did feel concerned that maybe I would not get to experience being paid what I felt like my value was, being paid for what I can bring to the table. I did have a little bit of fear about that. On the other side, because of the disciplines that we're in and because of the concepts that we're learning, I knew better than to invest myself so fully in capitalism that I would let it deter me, you know, because the discipline and my studies in humanities bring me closer to humanity. I knew better than to let it deter me. And so, you know, that was my experience for some time, to be paid less, even though the work that I was doing was so important, you know, and I don't say that as if, you know, the work that other people do is not important, but you know, as an educator, as a teacher, you work with people's kids. You know, you don't care how I am with your kids. You know, you don't want to pay me like I'm with your kids, or like I'm helping build the next generation and inspiring minds to be confident in their ability to change the world. You don't think what I'm doing is worth some money. It is a little bit disheartening. And there were times where I felt like, did I pick the wrong lane? Did I pick the wrong thing? And when I went forward with my graduate studies and I took on my program in the social and cultural analysis of education, again, I felt like, you know, I feel so enlightened. I can talk and see everything about everything, you know, but where's my money? When is it going to get lucrative? Because I do like ski trips. I haven't been skiing before, but in my mind, I can see it. So where is it? And it took for me to persevere. It took for me to know that that I didn't make the wrong decision, and to know for a fact that if I continue to put this energy out there and be committed to this lane, then it's going to work for me. It's going to work for me. It's going to work for me. And it did, and it has. And I will wrap up my talking point on this with the fact that I now work for the Umoja Community Education Foundation. Umoja is a Kiswahili term that means unity. Kiswahili is a language spoken in Africa. We're using language as power and naming something African in an African language. So you mean to tell me that after all of these years of figuring it out, and it hasn't been that long, thank you so very much to the, you know, to the universe and the Most High, it hasn't been such a long haul, but you mean to tell me that after all of this, I have the opportunity to work and advance everything that I've learned in the field of Africana studies? It's more than I could have ever asked for. It's something that I didn't ask for. And so I really just want for folks to trust your gut. Like Rizzhel said, you know, no, you have to make a decision sometimes, and you have to bet on yourself regardless of that decision. And so don't let anyone deter you from pursuing this major.
Thank you so much. And we can go ahead and move on to Richard.
Oh, that's pretty inspiring there. I would say that I was never pressured to earn a type of degree, especially one that pays more, but I was pressured to earn a degree. You know, in choosing to come out of college and be a teacher, I could definitely echo the sentiments that, you know, Myia is talking about. I really felt like that's one of the most rewarding jobs, but one of the most underpaid jobs out there, which is unfortunate because it's such a critical job, you know, to be developing the future, you know, future leaders of our country, of the world. And I just feel like there should be more support given to that. But I was told coming out of college and earning that degree and teaching that, it's a lifestyle choice, and it really is. You know what you're getting into, you know what you're going to get paid, but you know the rewards and the benefits and the outcomes that you're going to get from doing that type of work. Yeah, I made a career change to move over to HR and be a government employee, but I still hold dear in my heart that teaching was probably the best job that I've ever had. Um, yeah, I get paid more, significantly more with what I do now, but doesn't necessarily mean that's the most rewarding job that I have. But I still have benefits with what I do now in dealing with people and dealing with complex problems, dealing with people's jobs, hiring people, rewarding people for good performance, good behavior, those type of things. So it's still a rewarding job, but definitely teaching was holds the key to my heart for sure. But yeah, definitely never was pressured. It was just pressure to earn the degree, um, which puts a big weight on your shoulder to be able to accomplish that and meet everyone's expectations. But you have to do what you want to do and where you have passion in it, to be happy with what you're doing in your careers later on in life.
Thank you so much for all your thoughtful answers. To move on to my next question, what skills did you gain from your humanities degree that you find useful in your career? And we can start with Rizzhel.
Yeah, that's a great question. Something that I really learned as a part of humanities is just like positionality and like where I am and where I fit into the world, and that no matter how much I think no matter like the privileges or maybe the shortcomings that I experience, there's always other people that are experiencing more or less than me. And that, yeah, I think walking out of school, the experience that I really felt as I really communicated and had relationships, because I think that's maybe the most rewarding thing that I got from school, not necessarily the classes, but the people that I met, was a deeper sense of compassion and empathy for others. And that, I don't know, it's really interesting for me. I think the parts of school that the humanities part is like, it is the classes, but like I said, it's the interactions from the things that I learned from class, right? So like I was equipped with some tools by going to class, but I think putting the practice into action through the people that I met is what made the process really embedded in my normal life. Yes, but yeah, I think it's hard to do art without talking about humanity. It's basically the basis and the infrastructure of art. Otherwise, it's just making things, right? With that. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Porochista?
Yeah, I think for me also it's more like human spirit type things that I got out of like my degree. You know, there's been a lot of studies on reading and empathy, how like reading cultivates empathy. And so like just by increasing your reading list, they've found like people have a larger aptitude for like empathic like thinking. So that really means a lot to me, because when I have a class or when I was in class, I had this assumption, not that people thought like me, but that people had a level of decency and a level of openness. I had certain assumptions about who people were who were also in my degree. And the beautiful thing about that is that now that I'm in the real world, whether I'm on Twitter or whether I'm, at a rally or something, I still gravitate towards those same people. I still gravitate towards that same sense of decency, that same sense of like, the activist spirit that I had at a very young age, which really came out of classrooms in addition to communities. But with the communities, it was a little harder because at times I was in very conservative communities that, had no love for Iranian Americans or Muslim Americans. So it was often in the classroom that I then found my people, which was sometimes like literally students around me who were also interested in that course, or a professor who really changed my life. I think the professors were actually a really big part of it. because I was always fairly troubled as a student. And I was always, I don't want to say I was always like getting in trouble in like a conventional sense, but I had a lot of problems with authority. So I had disciplinary records and things like that. And I just didn't trust a lot of like, you know, a lot of America, and it was a lot of white America that I really had a big problem with at a young age. So, and with like, that's of course linked to what I said earlier about my sort of refugee journey here, and what America was like for Iranians in the 80s. So I think on a human spirit level, it was really, really important. The skills, I don't know if the skills, like as a writer, I teach people all the time, and I welcome people to take my classes all the time who have no writing experience. And I can't tell you that the person that like has never been in a writing workshop is like worse than the person who's taken that stuff for years. I just don't see that anymore. I think that you can teach writing to all sorts of people, and that talent can, it's mysterious sometimes where it comes from. So that stuff came from me, like honing my talent and like creating a writing practice came from reading and writing all the time and meeting other writers. But again, it was like the stuff that I found really valuable about the degree and going in that path was again, this like human spirit stuff that I got from like class discussions and lectures and reading a lot. And that stuff is really, really, really valuable because we don't live in the communities that say my Sufi grandmother grew up in, right? A small village where you have a, you know, an elder that like tells you how to be in the world. I mean, we do in certain parts of the world, and in the countryside in Iran, where a lot of my relatives are, you still have that. But for the most part, in the context that we're talking in right now, like we don't get that same guidance all the time in our society. And so that stuff for me, I ended up getting that out of some of like these classrooms and these really sacred discussions that really, really changed my life and gave me a way of feeling like I had something to say and something to offer. And so that was like very, very valuable for me.
Thank you. We can move on to Myia.
I think that one of the most critical skills that I earned in these studies has been the ability to reframe. I think it's one of the most powerful tools of the media. I think framing is a very powerful tool for marketing, businesses, messaging, etc. And so I have the ability to frame. Whether it's for me or it's for someone else. I think it's a skill that we learn here because again, we're learning about humanity. And doing that, another skill we learn is the ability to locate. Like Rizzhel said, they, are able to see themselves and wherever they are and how they're growing. This field allows you to see yourself and also to see others, which makes you an incredible communicator. You have more potential to reach a person where they are because our studies have trained us to see people and see them on a very fine level, not just the big picture, but everything is about detail in the humanities. And so whether you are an artist or a writer or a historiographer, like I have been in my studies, we follow the details. And so that is incredibly valuable when it comes to talking to people and understanding folks, getting the message just right. I think that those are some of the most valuable skills. Critical thinking, of course. I don't know why I say that like it's just something in my pocket. But I think that that's a testament to how critical we get in the colleges of arts and humanities. You get so critical that it's natural, that you cannot turn it off. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Thank you so much. Richard?
I would say for me, working with a lot of people, being a people person is an important skill set. Having collaboration, being able to work with people from diverse backgrounds, with diverse experiences, to come together on a common goal. Those are all important things. And being in a position of leadership, I say having emotional intelligence is a really strong attribute I think everyone should have, and being an effective communicator. When it comes to the technical side of things of what you learn in college and how it applies to the world, the working world, is, you know, in my particular job, it's being that critical thinker, being able to do the research into case law. We're basically like lawyers without the law degrees, and the work that we do in human resources. So being able to analyze, you know, how a law worked and how it favored someone, and then how it applies to the current case that you're working on. Those are all critical skills that, you know, you're learning in school. How to put a brief together, how to do public speaking, how to present your case, how to write a white paper, as we call it, that where you're trying to be persuasive and to get someone to buy into whatever it is that you're trying to present to them. Those are all, you know, critical skills that, you know, again, you're learning now that definitely apply in the workplace.
Thank you so much. For my next question, what do you enjoy most about your career? And then we can start with Rizzhel again.
What do I enjoy most about my career now, I think, is the intersection of my personal life, my career, my artistic life. They're not separate. I think as a student that, yeah, I just saw it as like these different, very clear-cut different parts of my life. I didn't talk to my family about my art. I didn't talk to about my family like in class, you know, which I think the more that I do work with the community, I'm realizing the more that we make those lines blurry, the more genuine and authentic the experiences in classes can be. And so, yeah, I think for me, it feels good to go to work and think, is this work? Because my friends are here, my family is here, the things that I care about are here. And yeah, it feels good to be surrounded by that daily and to not think like I only get to experience that after the 8 hours I go to work, or whatever amount of hours, 16 hours work a day, right? And so, yeah, it feels good to feel that all the time instead of just when I go like home, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much. Porochista?
Yeah, I have to echo that. That is something very satisfying about that intersection. And there's like a wholeness in your being that's just like very spiritually rewarding that I always dreamed of, that I just feel like everything is consistent. And like sometimes I'll meet someone at a book reading or something and I'll say like, oh, wow, you're really like your like Twitter account or something. And I'm like, yeah, that's really how I am. Like those are my interests. And what I write, like my books are my interests, and how I teach is my interest, and my social media is my interest. It's like all very honest and real. And I really feel like, you know, at this time in midlife, it's very nice to feel that. Like I don't have to hide who I am or, you know, go in circles anymore. So that's like really, really satisfying. On a more like pragmatic, level, because I am chronically ill and at times severely disabled, just having freedom in my schedule is incredible. Now, I don't always have complete freedom, but for instance, when I'm teaching at a university, or right now I'm doing a lot of ghostwriting and manuscript consulting. And so that allows me to work when I'm best. And for a while this year, when I was having some pretty bad health issues, for me, like it was easiest to work between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. So imagine if I had a corporate job, right? And I had to go into a workplace and it wasn't a pandemic year, like I would not be able to do that, right? But I was so grateful. Those were my only hours of really good health. And I could do that in my schedule, right? And I kept thinking, my gosh, thank goodness. When I became a writer, I didn't know I was going to be chronically ill or disabled. Thank God I have that, because I, you know, like I'm the person, no one is paying my bills, so I have to make it happen. So on that level too, I really appreciate the freedom. I think that was actually a part of why I had a disciplinary record when I was younger too. For me, just the 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. schedule that young people are like told to go through, right, from like K through 12, was really oppressive and really hard for me to manage. So I know these seem like small issues, but they really add up to like big things. Like this is why somebody might be acting up at 8 a.m. right? Like for me, that has like there's really serious reasons, like blood sugar reasons and things like that, for why I can't to this day have a gig that's at 8 a.m. So there's things like that. And then I just feel like at the same time, the narrative of my life, like I feel like I had a real vision when I was like 4 years old. Like I said, I wanted to be a writer. I didn't speak English. I was an ESL and I wanted to write books. And the fact that I like actually made that happen really just opens me up to more possibilities and makes me think there's like more that I can constantly achieve, because I achieved something that's like fairly difficult and against all odds. So like once you like prove yourself to yourself you can do these certain things, it just like it compounds itself and you just feel more and more free. So I can say that like, yeah, maybe my finances are not perfect and a lot of things are off and I'm chronically ill, whatever, but I actually can honestly say that I'm very happy. And I'm very happy that I stuck to my field and that my work is my everything, and I love it. So yeah.
Thank you so much. We can move on to Myia.
I will say that one of the most gratifying things in my current role is that I am able to be a scholar still. And I love that. It is so rewarding. You know, when I became a substitute teacher, I couldn't wait to get my own class. When I got my own class, I felt the need to teach adults. When I tried to teach adults, the opportunities weren't working out. And so that is how I landed this position as a regional coordinator, which gives me proximity to the classroom, proximity to multiple campuses, access to these campuses, but I do not work for a campus. I work remotely. I work for this foundation, and my job is to be a liaison between the people on campus and the people upstate at the foundation. But because I support this foundation, there have been multiple opportunities for me to use my brain and to build curriculum or to be a part of a white paper, like Richard mentioned, to create some type of presentation, to build the structure for a new training. And because the organization I work for, Umoja, again, that Kiswahili word for unity, you know, we are really transformative and we really rely on African-centered scholarship to guide our work. And so I feel like my undergraduate self being tasked to bring something back. Sometimes when I'm asked to do some work and build things for our organization, I love the fact that I can still be a scholar and be a student, even though it's unofficial, you know, even though that's not what my role is. I do still feel like I can be that lifelong learner that I am in this position, which has been such a blessing. It's been such a blessing.
And then we can move on to Richard. Thank you so much.
Yeah, what I enjoy most about my job, there's a few things. One of them is just having the freedom, as others have mentioned, just to really run my program, run my department, to set the vision for the organization and to be allowed the opportunity to execute to it. So I really enjoy that piece of it. I also like the fact that I get opportunities to still learn. I consider myself to be a lifelong learner, and that's something that you should never give up. is having those opportunities to get the training, be it in the, the classroom, on the job, or experiential, the hands-on. I think those are all important aspects. And then lastly, I think it's important, and what I really take joy in is watching the development of people that work in my department. An expert is one that shares knowledge. They don't hold knowledge back, or else they're not going to be an expert. They depart that knowledge to others. And so just seeing the light bulb go off from the folks, it's almost like teaching, right? You're seeing the light bulb go off, you're seeing the development of a person, you're seeing the promotion of a person, and eventually, hopefully that person takes over your job. So that's exactly what brings me joy with what I do every day.
Awesome. I have one more question before we move on to a few questions in the Q&A that I'll ask everyone. What are your next steps for your career? Or what would you say your next steps for your career are? And we can start with Rizzhel.
Yeah, something that I'm going through right now is I'm making the transition from being a teacher and educator to admin, which is something that I never thought that I would do. And I think people that knew me from high school would be like, what is going on? She would never do that. But what I've realized is that the struggle that I've encountered is, not having people in places of power to support me. And so I realize if I want to make a true lasting impact, that we need new leaders. And if they are not there, it's kind of like taking one for the team. I miss being in the classroom. I love being in the classroom. But what I love more is seeing my students in the classroom, having their own students. And so it's a little bit of a sacrifice, but at the same time, the payoff is much more valuable to the community, right? And so I think that for me, I'm in a space now where I'm really trying to think not just about my classroom, but how I treat my classroom and how that might mirror and be an example for other classrooms. And that, I'm really hoping that I think now is the great time to have some kind of educational reform for people to really think about how has education impacted us. And as my peers and I are starting to absorb some of the new leadership positions that are coming out, what can we do collaboratively to make sure that those changes actually stay and that they're not just surface level solutions to the way we feel now? Because I think a lot of the things that people feel now were not brought on by the pandemic. I think they were things that people have been feeling their whole life that were more visible by the pandemic.
Thank you so much. Porochista?
Yeah, this is such a fun question. I feel like there's a lot of possibility, again, like not just because, middle age or whatever, but because, like I said before, like once you get some degree of success, you feel encouraged to do more. So my fifth book is coming out probably in the next year or two, I think. It's already on contract, it's already been sold, but like, even that was really interesting. Usually you can't sell fiction, especially literary fiction, on proposal. So I was really excited to be at a place where I could have a major publisher like Knopf buy a book of mine on proposal. It was like crazy. So that really was encouraging. I'm really excited about that book. But at the same time, my wheels have been turning and I feel like maybe I should try screenwriting. Of course, that is more lucrative. So maybe that would be fun. When I was in my 20s, when I was still starting out, I was much more serious about what was art to me and what was not art. And because I grew up in LA around the, entertainment industry, I felt like I never wanted to do screenwriting. But now I'm like, hey, that's pretty fun. There's like a lot of great Netflix series that really inspire me and they're doing it well. And so why not? And then I also feel like I want to go back to a lot of the dreams I had as a child. So music was actually my first love. Like I was obsessed with music criticism. I mean, mainly. I was not very musical myself, but I grew up around a lot of amazing hip hop and R&B, and so I became a music journalist right out of college, and that was really exciting. And then the funny thing was, once my books came out, I got very pigeonholed as an Iranian American literary writer, so no one was letting me write about music anymore, which was infuriating. But I'm trying to go back to that. And so it's kind of like a funny thing. I've reconnected with some of my young interests back when I was much younger. And so I've been just like people who follow me on social media see that I post a ton about K-pop all the time. I'm really interested in that. I'd really like to do songwriting at some point, which is a very different sort of skill set than the writing I do. So I want to take like a songwriting class, which would be great, and maybe one day contribute in that way. It's just it just feels very good because I want to continue to do what I'm doing, but I think that I'm now like also freed up to do all these things on the side. And of course, I think, you know, given the challenges of this year and everything that built up to like a lot of the difficulties of this year, there's also my activism only becomes more and more important to me. And I thought of it even today when I was on Twitter talking about a horrific hate crime that happened in California, and you know, in this week or whatever it was reported today. And I just thought how I didn't even like think twice about going on Twitter and just like really going off on that. And how like earlier in my 20s, like I would have been scared to do that, like to speak my mind, because like what would that have meant for my like employers or like whatever, like, you know, I would have still done it, but I would have been paranoid there would be consequences with me speaking really strongly. And today I just was reminded that like I don't feel that anymore. It's not like I'm all powerful. There could of course be consequences to my actions, but you get to a certain point, and I remember my mentors telling me this and I didn't quite believe them, but you do get to a certain point where you can actually feel strong and like, you know, things, you actually have earned your keep. And like, you know, you don't have to constantly prove yourself. You don't have to constantly butt up against walls and like not be yourself. So that's been really, really rewarding, I think.
Thank you so much. Myia?
So I recently learned that the type of doctoral program that I want to get into is actually a medical one. I recently discovered that I want to become a psychiatrist, and thank you for that snap and affirmation and the smile and the love. You all know that as humanists and being in humanities, I'm a little bit removed from being prepared for medical school, which is required to become a psychiatrist. I was inspired by something I saw online. I hope you do get into screenwriting and just explore and spread your wings. I saw something on TV. I was watching The Sopranos, and this is before Tony Soprano made some really racist remarks about his teenage daughter's boyfriend, which turned me off and caused me to stop watching in the middle of season 2. But this is when I still loved him. And he, you know, was seeing a therapist. He was seeing a psychiatrist. And it was the week where the world was on fire. Well, I should say one of the many weeks that the world has been on fire. When Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and George Floyd all kind of snowballed into one condensedly tight moment. It was that moment, and I was sitting in that moment on one of the days, and I was just feeling really pressed to figure it out because I had been debating for some time. Do I see myself holding a PhD? Do I see myself holding an EDD? If I have a PhD, maybe I can do this. You know, I just was thinking about dissertations. What do I love? What can I commit to writing to? What excites me? What will make me the most happy? What will make me the most happy? And so I kept finding things and getting closer and closer and closer, but nothing was holding me from ping-ponging back and forth between a PhD at this institution one week and the next month I was somewhere else in a whole nother doctoral study because I was just trying to figure it out. But when I was sitting in that moment and watching The Sopranos, and I'm listening to Tony Soprano explain that his problems as a mafioso, right? I was just thinking, man, Black people need this too, you know? Like people need this too. I wish I could just do something like this. I just wish I could do something like that. I could totally see myself doing that. And right after I said it, I said, girl, what are you talking about? You wish you could do it. Just do it. You can do this. That's it. That's what you've been looking for. And I immediately scared the crap out of myself because, again, I realized that it was daunting, that this thing that I thought about so casually, oh, you can do it, was a medical degree. And that me, as being someone who has always studied in the College of Arts and Humanities, I don't have STEM work on my transcripts. I don't have, I have not met the requirements to even qualify if I were to apply. I'm not ready for that. And so it almost felt like this groundbreaking feeling, that I might be starting my life over, or might be starting my schooling over. That was short-lived because I realized how relevant who I am and what I have learned is to what I will learn, and how unique my experience is going to make me as an applicant. I am still working as a professional, obviously, but in my spare time, in my free time, I am back enrolled in school. I am at the community colleges. Shout out to Southwestern College right now. That's where I am taking biology 100, because I was not successful in biology as an undergrad, and it's a requirement for this new journey that I'm on. I feel like I'm starting from the bottom, but I feel so uniquely close to the students who are Umoja students and are in the programs that I support, because it has given me the opportunity to see what this asynchronous learning environment is, and how they're experiencing being in school and being in classes that they may love or they may detest, but they still have to be there and they have to be in this online environment. I have the unique opportunity to actually experience that with the students who I'm working with, and it has been quite unique. I look forward to finishing this and moving on to med school and completing my residency and becoming a psychiatrist and opening a rehabilitation center and so on and so forth. There are many years to be had in that which I just said, but I feel very motivated, I feel very supported, and I feel very excited. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Richard?
Wow, what an epiphany, Myia. That's great. From what I understand, I hear that medical schools are really liking folks with different backgrounds that didn't really necessarily just focus on, the sciences throughout their scholastic careers. So you're going to make yourself to be a good candidate having that humanities background, applying for those types of schools. So kudos to you and good job. For myself personally, in my current job, where do I see myself? I'm new in my position for the last couple of years. I really just kind of want to figure it out. I have a brand new position in my organization that gives me a lot of flexibility to do a lot of different things. So I got to figure out exactly what I want to be when I grow up in that position. So, I just really want to be the expert, get all the depth and the breadth of everything I need to know about my position. I do want to dabble in, though, learning more on the financial side of our organization, so I can understand how funding is given, how we pay for labor, how we pay for training, how we pay for awards, and which funding streams that comes from, where does the money come from, and how do we balance budgets. I want to learn that side of it so I can maybe set myself up in the future to be a business director for a naval command or even outside of the Navy. So those are some opportunities I'm thinking about, and really I want to put more focus too on mentoring and coaching. I'm starting to do that now. I have a couple of folks that I'm mentoring. I really want to expand that and put that in place too in our organization, to where we're having more people do that in leadership positions where they're providing mentoring and coaching for all in the workforce. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I think we're going to go ahead and move on to a couple of questions from the audience, from the attendees. We can start with this one. This one is for Myia specifically. They say, my question is for Myia. What advice would you give to undergrad students who dream of pursuing several humanities related degrees? How can we mentally and financially prepare for jumping into graduate school while being an undergrad?
Okay, I'm going to do the best I can to give useful advice and not poor advice. Okay. First off, please utilize any of your counseling or guidance, mentorship, professional development, career-oriented resources that you have on your campus, because they will always keep you abreast of any opportunities that can support this goal that you have. That is a mistake that many students make. They move forward, they don't reach out and utilize the different services that are available to them, and you end up missing out on scholarship opportunities and more. That's what I would say about being financially prepared. Because I will really want to say is, don't worry about the finances. It's gonna be okay. I don't know how it's going to be okay, but it will, because you want it so badly. It's going to work, even if you have to steal and hop the trains, even if you have to borrow time with your friends and sleep on their couches so that you're closer to your institution when you get to class. There's all kinds of ways it's going to work out. Don't let anything deter you from moving forward with your studies and your plan for yourself. Not money, no. What I would say as far as being mentally prepared is really tapping into all of the skills and the tools that we mentioned that come from this type of learning, being in the humanities. Tapping into that will really give you the positive self concept. You know what I'm saying? It'll give you the right mindset to know that you belong in graduate school and you should be there, and that you have something invaluable to contribute to your graduate experience. You need the institution, very true, but the institution needs you. And that is something that you must believe if you're planning on taking this further, because graduate school is quote unquote not for everybody, right? So I would say keep that with you and pursue as many of them that make sense to you at the time. The last bit of advice I'll say is don't reinvent the wheel. And so if you are in a track right now that connects very well to another track, it speaks and is more closely related to something else you want to do, then connect it to that one. I'm sure there are many things that you want to do, but take time looking at those connections first. And then when you look at the big picture, there will be less pieces for you to try to put together, if that makes sense. We can talk more about this offline if you need more.
Thank you so much. I think talking about institutions kind of relates to this next question. Rizzhel kind of answered it, but I'd be curious to see if anyone else had any opinions on this. Someone asked, today, does attending and earning a degree from a more prestigious university than a less prestigious one still affect the success of building a career within the humanities? And we can just kind of, if anyone has an answer for this, just feel free to speak on it.
I guess I could say one thing about that. In my opinion, and I don't see Rizzhel's answer for some reason. I'm slow at my computer's not being very cooperative. In my field, I think it matters less than ever, to be honest. I don't think, in fact, sometimes this sounds a little weird to say, there might even be a little bit of a bias, maybe against someone who's like my brother went to an Ivy League, right? Like, You know, I don't know. I wouldn't say like the bias is like hurting my brother, right? But I'm just saying, like, I think it just matters less than ever. I think the you know, the curtain has been lifted on a lot of things in the last few years, thanks a lot to like a lot of social justice activism and things like that. More than like when I was a teenager, I thought if you went to a fancy school, your life was made, and it meant that you were actually smarter. I actually was fed that lie, and it's bullshit, right? We know that sometimes people don't have the money, or you had a, you know, whatever happens, you had a tougher time, or you just didn't want to go to those schools, right? Like there could be so many reasons why someone picks like what seems like a lesser school. Sometimes I tell my students, in fact, to go study with the writers that they really love, and they might not be at like the fanciest institution, right? Like I'm telling you, as someone who went to like Johns Hopkins and Sarah Lawrence, they have pretty good names, right? In a lot of ways, those were the wrong schools for me. And I regret actually both of those choices. I can say, even though they amounted to like where I am right now, the amount of pain that I experienced at schools that did not reflect my communities growing up, I you know, that was a lot, and I didn't need to go through that. And so for me, you know, I had a lot of mental health problems, a lot of suicidal ideation at different points in academic structures. And so for me, like, you know, I made choices that were maybe more motivated by thinking that like name brands were better. That was just like the culture I grew up in. But I absolutely tell students, I don't think that's the case. And I think you'll get a lot more like looking at the professors you want to study, or the programs you really like, or you look at like the demographics of the students, or even the cities. Like, is it in a city? Like for me, one thing that did go well was I found New York City, which for me has been a really great place to be. So I think I wouldn't worry about that personally.
I'd like to add, just also as someone that was an adjunct for a long time, is that when I taught at Cal State San Marcos, Southwestern College, or Maricosta College, I didn't change the way that I taught to these different communities and schools. And so something that I always try to reiterate to my students is that the quality of education is, I think, more so now also defined by you and the roles in which you play as a student in your classroom. So I would say, ask your teacher questions. Get your money's worth. And that I think for me, I think I did a lot of observation in school, and I'm realizing now I should have spoke more. Mm-hmm.
I would say that the degree is important. Where you get it from, that's really your calling on, you know, where you choose to get your degree from. And, you know, it has to be the right fit for you and what it is you're pursuing in your careers. But you know, we do a lot of hiring in my organization, and we get degrees from a lot of different colleges. We don't say, well, this one went to this school, this one went to that school. You know, do they have the skill set that's necessary to fill the job? And I think that's really the most important aspect. You know, something to think about too is no matter where you go, you want to do the best you can wherever you go. You want to get the good grades. You know, that really does pay off. And I could tell you an example in my organization. When I got hired, being above that 3.0 student bumped me up in my salary. That's just the way the government process kind of works. So it's important, you know, no matter where you go, just do well.
Awesome. I think my next question is this one right here. For students concerned about finding a job in their field, how would you suggest they explore different subset careers without compromising supporting themselves financially? And then, just because I'm not sure if everyone can see Rizzhel's answer to this, her answer was advocate for yourself, never work for free, know your worth, observe the market, where do you fit as you are? Understand your goals. What do you want to do with your life? What do you need for yourself to survive? Also learn to pivot and stay on your toes. Don't be complacent with what jobs are currently being offered. The need in the humanities is always changing, which means jobs and careers also need to change.
If I can add to that, because it was a very full response, something that gave me a little boost on top of that, it actually came from Dr. Crystal Henderson, who is on the line right now. She gave me some feedback and reminded me that this job hunting process is not personal. that not having the job, not being selected, all of that, it has nothing to do with the force that you are. We live in a society that is highly robotic, and it's scary in some ways for me. And it's just kind of a part of it. You're not in this alone. We all, the employment market is a tank of sharks. Okay, it is really tough, and it has nothing to do with the quality that you are. You know, if you're still struggling.
Okay. Oh, Rizzhel, did you have anything else to add to that?
No, just that's so true. And it's I was just trying to think, how did I cross over to that? Because I feel that way now. And I remember not feeling like that before. I was just gonna say, like, maybe it's like a mantra to also say to yourself daily. I don't know how I got to that place. If I figure it out, I will write back to you and let you know.
Awesome. And so we are all done with the Q&A. Personally, I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and speak with everyone, and to answer these questions. All of this sort of knowledge and advice and insight is very useful to me as well, personally. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
A pleasure.
I need to unmute myself. So thank you so much, everyone. As closing remarks, Professor Pega and I offered the following words. Thank you to all of the panelists who shared openly and with vulnerability the academic and professional journey and the ways in which you overcame challenges in your lives. Also the way in which you blaze trails, your own creative path amidst family and cultural expectations to uplift your communities and to feed your inner passion. It's really inspiring to hear how each of you are doing it in your own unique ways. So we are incredibly proud of all that Demree and all of our panelists have accomplished. Through this event, we hope to foster awareness and interest in diverse career paths in humanities and to build up students' social capital through storytelling from role models of similar backgrounds who struggled, persisted, and succeed in their career paths. And so as professionals of color, each of you are a success story, and we're grateful that you are serving as great role models for our students. So we thank you for your time. And we also want to give a big shout out to our amazing moderator, Demree, for doing an amazing job facilitating the panel. It's definitely not easy to be doing it on Zoom in this kind of wonky space. Participants, if you can please fill out our survey at tinyurl.com/Mesa Humanities. You can share your thoughts and reactions about the event and our panelists and our moderators there. We appreciate you sharing time with us during this event, and that we hope you found this of value to your own journey in life. So with that, thank you so much and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you again.
Bye.
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 So 3 people.
Wow, we did so good.
We did. The
Yeah,
chat
sure.
was still hopping. Like, I'm so, wow.
Mhm. Yeah. I guess only the panelists got to see Christy Carson's comment and Sean's comment. I thought it was like open to
Yeah.
the whole group. But yeah, it was great. And we'll hopefully get a lot of survey responses. And Denise, I have a quick question for you. So
Oh, wait, let me,
oh.
hold on.